All right, good afternoon. Thank you for everyone who's here. Welcome, Planning Commission members, staff, and guests. Today is the May Planning Commission session. Multiple staff members are here today to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly and all applicants and members of the public are able to participate in the meeting at the appropriate times.
If you are here today and would like to speak about a case, please provide your name clearly into the microphone, and please be sure to sign in. I think the sign-in sheet is now up here at the podium. If you're here today to speak about a case, you must speak up when the chairperson calls for public comment. And I'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Causey? Here. Mr. Cook?
Here.
Ms. Marshall?
Here.
Mr. Osorio?
Here.
And Mr. Cohn.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I will give a brief overview of the meeting format. Applicants with requests before the Planning Commission are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons representing or presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. The time limit does not include any questions asked by the Planning Commission or staff regarding requests. During the public comment period, members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. After the public comment period, applicants have 5 minutes to respond. Once the Planning Commission begins deliberation, no additional comments will be permitted by the applicant or the public. The administrator has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. The Planning Commission reserves the right to amend those procedures on a case-by-case basis. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There's been just one change since publication. The street name case, which was number 4 SN-2024-003, has been deferred. Everything else is as published.
Thank you. We will go over the consent agenda. The Planning Commission uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. Examples of such items include approval of site plans, annexations, and street names. If a member of the Planning Commission or the general public would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, you must speak up after the consent agenda is read. Then that item is removed from the consent agenda and will be considered during the meeting. The Planning Commission then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please read the consent agenda?
Certainly. Item number 1 is approval of the April 11th, 2024 minutes. Item number 2 is under future land use map amendment and zoning map amendment for a pending annexation. It's Annex-2024-0008, 15.98 acres on the northeast side of Old Percival Road, 8441 Old Percival Road, formerly known as 8475 Old Percival Road, and 1.5 acres on the south side of Old Percival Road. Request recommendation on the assignment of the land use classification of Urban Edge Residential Small Lot, UER1, and the assignment of zoning of Residential Single Family Small Lot District, RSF3, for a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as neighborhood medium density and zoned M1 and INS by Richland County.
Is there anyone here to speak about the Old Percival Road property? Any commission members? Seeing none, we can continue.
The next case is number 3, Annex-2024-0010, 517 Hampton Trace Lane. Request recommendation on the assignment of the land use classification of Urban Edge Residential Small Lot, UER1, and the assignment of zoning of Residential Single Family Medium Lot District, RSF2, for a pending annexation. The property is currently classified as mixed residential high density and zoned R3 by Richland County.
Is there anyone here to speak about the Hampton Trace Lane property? We can continue.
The next one is a zoning text amendment This is case number 5, TA-2024-0003, 1800 Senate Street. Request recommendation on an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 17, Appendix C, Type 3 landmarks to establish the property as a City of Columbia landmark.
Is there anyone here to speak about the Senate Street property? We can continue.
Under zoning text and map amendment, number 6 is ZMA-2024-0004, 1100 Courtright Street. Request recommendation to rezone the property from Community Activity Center Corridor, CAC, North Main Corridor Design Overlay District to Community Activity Center Corridor, North Main Corridor Overlay District, Historic Preservation Overlay District, Individual Landmark Type 3, and amend the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 17, Appendix C, Type 3 landmarks to establish the property as a City of Columbia landmark.
Thank you. Are there any commission members or anyone from the public who would like to speak on the Courtright Street property? All right. I don't think we had anyone from the public to speak on any of these. So I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve today's consent agenda along with the minutes from April 11th, 2024.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right.
That brings us to the regular agenda. First case is S-Plan-2024-0006 at the 4600 block of Fort Jackson Boulevard, TMS number 16503-05-04. This project entails the construction of a 334,000 square foot, 6-building multifamily development on 21.08 acres within the 4600 block of Fort Jackson Boulevard. The proposed development will contain 280 apartments, amenity space to include a clubhouse and a pool, surface parking. The required number of off-street parking spaces for this development is 420, whereas 430 will be provided. Since publication of the agenda, the applicant has revised the site plan. The site plan is in front of you. The revisions include relocation of the trash compactor as well as the emergency fire access, showing gates to ensure that the emergency access will be for emergency purposes only. And I believe the applicant is here and can express their case unless you have questions for staff.
Were there on the, I have a couple of questions on the site plan. Were there on the trash compactor relocation? That's not an issue from a staff level relative to the buildings?
We, where it was currently located, we received some concerns from the neighborhood, being that it was adjacent to the single-family residential that abuts the property. And so the new location, staff believes that we can work with it as it's being proposed now.
Okay. Do any commission members have any questions of staff?
This drawing is the new proposal.
Correct.
Is the applicant here to speak about the project?
Hey, good afternoon. Robert Morgan from Homes Urban Development. Joined here with some other team members. My colleague, Blake Muldrow, is here with me. Mark Meadall from our site planning and civil engineering firm, Seaman Whiteside, is here with me. And then Mark James from Cypress Real Estate is also here. First of all, thank you guys. Appreciate the time before you today. And we also want to thank the Neighborhood Association of Brandon Acres. Our team has worked with them extensively over the last several months, and as was just alluded to, literally over the last couple of days to make some revisions, which we hope will appease their community. As was stated, this is a 280-unit Class A multifamily community spread over 6 buildings with affiliated amenities. We were somewhat challenged in the site plan in the sense that we have wetlands on the site. We also have pretty significant topography. So the layout that we derived is essentially 2 streetscapes with buildings on them, which are obviously very clear in the site plan that we have put forward. We will work around almost all the wetlands. We do have one wetland crossing that we'll work with the Corps on that, but by and large, the wetlands will stay as is, as will the existing vegetation in those. Another important thing I wanted to note about the site topography is that the Brandon Acres neighborhood is the high point, or I should say our property boundary with Brandon Acres is the high point of the site, and we're sloping down towards Interstate 77 and really down towards some of these various finger wetlands. So that is the high point. Most of the site of our site is 10 to 15 feet plus below that neighborhood. And I'm going to get into some more specifics about one building in particular. So with respect to that and working with Brandon Acres, it was already stated is that the original compactor location is shown on the plan that I'm looking at. You guys are looking at obviously the revised. That was something that was brought up, and we were happy to move that to the location on your plan to appease the neighborhood. Similarly, it was always, the intent was always to have emergency access at Cedar Terrace. That would not be any vehicular connection for our project. So as was stated, we clearly specify that a gate will be there with a Knox box for the emergency folks so they can access that in the event of an emergency. So no cross traffic. All of our traffic and access will be via Jackson Boulevard. A couple of other additional notes. Buffering to Brandon Acres has obviously been an important part of our discussions with the neighborhood. Building 7, which is the furthest building to the east or the far right of your page, I wanted to highlight the fact that the current plan is we have a 30-foot buffer between us and the neighborhood, and we plan to keep that undisturbed because the grade change with our development is pretty minimal there. So we have 9 6-inch plus caliber trees and the existing vegetation, which our plan there is we think that that will provide the best possible buffer. In the other locations of the other 2 buildings, we have topography that will have to work. So those will be to city specifications and code, other buffers. But building 7 is 4 to 5 feet below the adjacent property line. So everything again is stepping down. So there'll be that buffer and then it'll be down to our building. So I definitely wanted to point that out. Buildings 2 and 3, which are the other ones that have properties abutting them, those buildings, as I mentioned earlier, are 10 to 15 feet below the first floor elevation of those, so they'll be significantly lower. So most of the backyards out there, there'll be a point by which the land significantly drops, and that's where we'll provide buffering. I should also note that between the existing vegetation in the wetlands and the buildings that we will construct, there's been some concern about what happens with this site and to the existing neighborhood in I-77, both from a visual and a sound situation. And our thoughts, I can't sit here and tell you what exactly the sound is going to do, but with the building buffer and the vegetation buffers, we anticipate that that shouldn't cause any significant issues with the adjacent neighborhood. So those are a couple of items that we have been working with over the last couple of weeks with the neighborhood, and we hope we've gotten to a point that we have been able to address most of their concerns. So with that, like I mentioned, our team is here to address any other questions, any specific technical questions, and we appreciate you guys hearing the case this evening, this afternoon.
Thank you. Do any commissioner members have any questions of the applicant?
On the site plan, what is the vegetation that's planned here? It's not real clear.
Yeah.
It's got the little line.
Can I invite our land planner up? So there's 2 different, there's behind building 7, the plan is to keep that in the natural state.
Like on this one?
Yeah, and then the other one, Mark, I don't know if you want to speak to exactly what that vegetation will be.
So are you talking about the existing vegetation behind that Building 7 that they're pointing out?
Right down here at the bottom where it's got this little,
Okay, so that'll be evergreen trees. We have two different2 varieties. I'm not looking at the plan right now exactly what those are. And then we'll have roughly 3 to 4 rows of shrubs that'll be flowering, evergreen, switch grasses, different kind of ornamental grasses to create different textures and sizes, just for beautification purposes. But we do have evergreen shrubs in there that'll get 6 to 8 feet tall. And then we have some that'll be 4 foot tall for different textures and beautification.
okay. So the properties that are here, their backyards won't be looking into parking lots or,
It should not.
Buildings.
As he mentioned, the building 1 and 2 are roughly 10 to 15 feet lower. Those are the ones that we're going to be implementing those plantings on. And then building 7, while it's only 4 to 5 feet below, it's the one that's going to have probably the best natural buffer, because we have 9 existing trees. That's not counting any kind of shrubbery or thickets or anything that's inside of that as well. And additional trees that are smaller than 6 inches. That we're not required to pick up on the tree survey. Trying to think. But yeah, that'll be kind of a more naturalistic approach on that buffer on building 7.
okay. And I know that there was a question about building number 2. How far is that from the property line?
It's 100 feet at the very closest, and I'm talking on the corners, the far right corner and the south corner. Those are a little over 100 feet.
And you said that's the high point, right? That's the high point of the property?
No, that's a low point. So I believe that in one of our plans, we have the FFE for building 1, and I
this?
believe
I
it
thought
is
that was the low point.
386. And now this was a preliminary grading plan that we did not include in the plans because it wasn't finalized. We didn't want to provide any information that wasn't fully vetted and explained. So
The
right
building,
now,
Mark, building 7 is the high point.
oh, building 7. Sorry, I thought
Yeah,
you were talking building 1. I
Yeah, building
apologize. Yes,
7.
building 7 is the highest building. That is correct.
Okay.
You said the finished floor elevation is 7 feet lower there, roughly?
4 to 5 feet lower.
Okay.
Then basically the rear property line of the adjacent single-family homes.
Okay, I think that's all of my questions.
I think purely from a site plan standpoint, you didn't have to give the elevations, but are those what you intend for them to look like?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, that's the correct. They're designed to the extent that that's the aesthetic that we plan to use.
Here they are.
Any commission members have any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak either for or against? When you come up, if you wouldn't mind, please stating your name and speaking into the microphone.
Is this good microphone distance? All right. So my name is Sarah Navarez, and I am the Vice President of the Brandon Acres Cedar Terrace neighborhood, and I live at the corner of Woodlawn and Cedar Terrace. So like I said, Building 7 is what I will see when I walk out of my door every single morning. And I do want to say that this applicant has worked with us extensively. We've had a couple developers working in our neighborhood, and the number of emails and meetings with this one combined are dozens above any other developer who's worked with us. So we really appreciate that. We really do believe they're trying their best to create a very nice development. But a lot of us bought our houses because our neighborhood feels like you are in the woods. Even though you're less than 10 minutes to downtown, you are out in the woods. We've got deer, we've got fawns in our yard, we've got turtles, we even had a wildcat a few weeks ago. And that is why many of us bought our homes and like this neighborhood. And so a lot of the questions that you'll see are trying to maintain that attitude and that feel. And we know that it's simply not going to be the case with a large development. We really appreciate what they've done. And the relocation of the trash compactor was our #1 issue for this. So we are glad that that has changed and that the grading has been clarified. And I think that most of the vegetation coverage issues, we do feel like we can work with them. If y'all would still like to suggest the buildings close to our homes are 2-story capped, we would love that from you, but I understand if that's also not within your power at this time. So do you have any questions about our neighborhood's concern? I know you got a lot of emails from our neighbors, and most of them have also been in direct communication with me, if you'd like any more details there.
I appreciate you coming and writing the letter, and it's encouraging to see developers working with the neighboring people they impact. And I was happy to see the compactor relocated and the gate clarified for,
Yeah.
emergency access.
And the situation with the gate too, our road, Cedar Terrace, is a Department of Transportation road. It's not a city road, and it's not well maintained. It does connect to Garner's Ferry, but there's no light. And so it's already a very dangerous access for our residents, and that is the reason that we were so clear on that we cannot handle any more traffic. We can barely handle the traffic that's already going past. So the emergency access was a real concern that they have been responsive to throughout this process. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak either for or against, or just comment with regard to the project or the application?
Hello, I'm Josiah Blevins. I live at 1433 Woodlawn Avenue, and Building 7 is going to be directly behind my property, and also the side of my property butts up to what's going to be the emergency access road. So I'm one of the homeowners who's going to be most affected by this. I bought the house on December 30th of 2022. So for a year and a half, I've been working on the house, moving stuff into it, and when I purchased the house, I had no idea that this was coming. The people who sold it to me did know, apparently, as I found out later. And it's just, I'm not a huge fan of it, as you can imagine. If any of you found out that the lot behind your home was being sold and a 3-story apartment was going up, and that they were going to clear cut a whole lot of old growth forest that was a great natural buffer, and as Sarah mentioned, adds a lot to the magic of the neighborhood, I don't think any of you would be very happy about it. So the 30-foot buffer that's been proposed, I don't feel like that cuts it. I don't understand if it's going to be exactly 30 feet from the property line to the building. That just does not seem like enough space for keeping the trees that I would like to keep there. Sarah mentioned seeing the building every morning when she walks outside. It would be, it would be blocking out the sun from my house. So, and I understand the wetlands, pose a logistical challenge, and that they had to kind of be worked around. So, and I also, I support multifamily housing in the city. I understand that's an issue, so I'm happy to see it coming. But just, I guess, not in my backyard, I'm not happy about. So I would love if there was an additional, 45 or 60 feet total for the barrier. Seems like that would be a lot more, preferable for me. And, I know it's probably late in the game, but is that my time?
You can finish.
Okay. I know it's probably late in the game, but, if that building could even be shuffled more towards I-77, that would be a huge relief for me as well. Thank you.
Which address was your address?
1433 Woodlawn Avenue.
Okay,
And Freya says hello.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have is there anyone else from the public that would either like to speak for or against or comment? Any commission members have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to comment and say it's great to see the developer address some of the concerns before the meeting. Ms. Navarez, thank you so much for your email beforehand. I actually had number one on here, the trash compactor. So it was great to get here and see that it had already been moved and that some of the other concerns had already been addressed. It's not often that we see such a positive interaction. So just want to say thank you to all of you.
Yeah, I think I would echo the same comments. One thing I think that would be good, maybe to clarify, it looks like the buffer's 30 feet, but then maybe there's another 20 to the building? 15, so you're 45 to 50 feet? Okay. Can you, one question I have, it looks like there's like a kind of a wrapping landscaping around 2 and 3, is it 2 and 3? That's a little more intense than what's around 7?
That's correct, because we're only grading between.
You need to come to the microphone.
Yeah, I'm
to
sorry.
Get it on the record.
I'm sorry, would you? Thank you.
So behind Building 7, we're doing all of the grading that we can between the building and the buffer. We're trying to save that buffer as much as possible, so we're not trying to impact that. We have a note on our landscape plan that we can provide supplemental landscaping if there's trees that are removed or shrubs that are removed that would help benefit and beef up that buffer to meet the requirements. But it's our prerogative to not plant that, right, or show plantings there, because we're trying to save that as much as naturalistic buffer as possible. So because of the grading, the way it's laid out behind Building 1 and 2, we're going to have to replant that entire buffer to meet the code as it's required.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, would you come forward?
I think one of the reasons we've had questions about the landscaping is because this is older woodlands, the trees are really tall, so there's almost no understory to this part. All of the trees are like longleaf pines where the coverage doesn't really start until really high, and below 45 feet is just trunk. And so when we've asked about additional plantings, it's to kind of provide that sight line for the 1- and 2-story parts of the building. Like the 3rd story is going to be covered in pine needles, but you're still going to be able to see the lower stories very clearly through the tree trunks. So that's kind of why we had the additional questions about additional planting, is that understory part is trying to get that part beefed up in the landscaping, if that makes sense. It's only really the tall parts that are truly blocked by the trees, if that makes sense, and some of the concerns.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? I think before entertaining a motion, I would just like to echo other commission members' comments on this being a great example of developers and neighbors trying to work together in ways that we haven't always seen. So I appreciate everyone coming and speaking, and on both sides working together. We've had some interesting ones over the last year. So that said, I will.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Before you go into that, we just want to make sure that we get one of the letters that came in
thank you.
after the email that was sent to you with all the letters. We did have one come in from Rachel James. That letter has been presented to you, but we just wanted to make sure that it was on the record that you did receive that letter.
And I would ask if there were a motion to approve this, that it would include incorporating all staff comments. But either way, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve S-Plan 2024-0006, the 4600 block of Fort Jackson Boulevard, subject to all staff comments.
We have a motion.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Ayes have it. Applicant's approved. Motion passes. is there any additional business?
I don't think so.
All right.
Anybody? What, I didn't hear what she said.
If anyone did not sign in, would you please
Okay.
sign in before leaving? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I got everybody's.
All right. Have no other business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.